What's the best way to be in a romantic relationship? Is there one? Maybe it's possible there isn't a right way for everyone, but instead it's up to each individual to figure out what works best for them. Today, Cheri Reeder is our guide as we discuss how relationships might be viewed in our new society. In this episode, we get into open relationships, which has fascinated me for a while, as well as the importance of communication within relationships. Cheri has over 30 years as a nurse in psychology and holistic medicine. She's president of a naturopathic medicine corporation. She's also a certified yoga and hypnotherapy instructor. Cheri has been interviewed for local and national news outlets and appeared on Showtimes' Polyamory, Married and Dating. She has also lived in a polyamorous, fluid, open relationship since there was even a word for it. She also enjoys teaching self-responsibility, compassion, and relationship exploration. I had so much fun with this discussion and learned so much from talking with Cheri. She's such an amazing person, and it's actually pretty funny how I met her because I was just at Lux one day randomly and started talking to her, and she happened to be visiting from San Diego for her niece's graduation. So, as I do, after getting to know her a little bit and finding out how interesting she was, I decided to invite her on to the podcast, and she was kind enough to accept and came over, and we had this remarkable open discussion. So since it was a last minute occurrence, I didn't send her over the questions like I normally do that I prepare for the interview. So we bounced around a little bit, which was totally on me, totally my fault. I think she did a phenomenal job, and I think you'll get a lot out of this conversation. Before I jump into it with Cheri, I'd really appreciate it if you could check me out on Patreon and consider donating. There are some really cool rewards for contributing, and I'll be coming up with some new ones soon. However, if you're not into doing that kind of thing, then I'd be extremely grateful if you could leave a review and comment. And finally, let's take our 8th step out of the cave with Cheri Reeder. Like I was kind of telling you earlier, I do lead in to kind of frame the conversation because sometimes it's very difficult for people to get an idea of what society could be like and getting into this discussion because we get very into how do we solve and fix what we're currently living in, which makes sense because we're here, we're trying to fix these problems. But that just makes it hard for this kind of conversation. We're trying to break from that and be like, in a sense, anything is possible. How do we make it happen? And we can make it happen. And let's go from there, right? Let's go from like starting over. We don't have all these other problems and things that might affect certain other things. Like you get to build it from scratch.
So creating like an ideal society.
Yeah, exactly. So this is kind of like the frame, right? So I'd say, let's imagine that we've purchased an island off the coast of Fiji, and our goal is to create an optimized society fresh from start. Meaning we're rethinking the culture, the economic structures, the educational systems, the government systems, and the urban development, et cetera, et cetera. I'm your client, and I'm able to pay you whatever amount it takes to get the job done, right? For whatever we're about to talk about. And for this, we're going to talk about coming up with a way to teach children and the youth about relationships, sex, and how to find what works for them within that context. So currently we have a highly advanced technology. We have AI. We have, everything you need in the classroom to make the optimal educational system work, right? We have a culture of openness, learning, growth, and personal development. It's just ingrained in how kind of people think. The goal is to achieve wisdom, not necessarily success, happiness, or accolades. Although those things are are going to be part of any society, that's not like the main goal. The main goal is to achieve wisdom. And that will be hopefully seen maybe as like the people that are like held to the highest regard. Not maybe necessarily the people who have the most money. And then a culture based on compassion and communication. So I'm going to try something new with this episode, and I'm going to give you a scenario, and then we're going to talk about that scenario and kind of see where it leads.
So our goal is to our goal is to focus on and create an amazing culture. Start that over. Our goal is to focus on and create an amazing culture that ultimately becomes a wise society. To do that, we need to educate people properly on how to navigate relationships, because let's be honest, the only reason for society is to have meaningful relationships with people. Otherwise, we might as well just go live in the forest alone.
Be a hermit.
Yeah, right. For this conversation, we're just going to focus on romantic relationships, just to stay focused and centered and kind of give it a track. So what do you think about creating a type of potentially mandatory class on dating and romantic relationships in schools, and in those classes teaching about how to have a loving, connected relationships? You'd also maybe teach about how to properly end relationships when they run their course, how to deal with conflict, and what I'm most excited about getting into with you is how to have all different types of relationships, ranging from a monogamous, if that's what works for you, but also open or, polyamorous relationships, if maybe that's what you want to do. So now I'll go to you with all that, which is kind of a lot.
That is a lot. This is awesome. So I want to be part of that society. Just
cool.
To start out with there. That sounds fun. I love an adventure and a challenge. Yeah, and the first thing I want to say, and this is kind of a broad statement, but I think we learn so much about ourselves and about the world through each relationship that we have.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to learn something different from each person.
Mm-hmm.
So in my ideal scenario, when you're talking, I'm just like, well, you should encourage people to mix it up as much as possible. Because the more people can go deep with an individual, or a few individuals, so it's a more intimate group and they can really get to know each other, the more they're going to learn. And then there's a whole island of people, right? Eventually a whole world of people. So to stay 50 years with one person, it's kind of limiting in that kind of learning. So that's the first thing I want to say. I would encourage people to mix it up. And really value each connection that they make. Like, really know that there's something to learn there. There's a reflection back to the self. I don't know if that's the proper term for reflection, but that there's a mirror that you're going to see in that other person.
Yeah.
That's the first thing I want to say about it. And encouraging children, obviously you have to start with age appropriate when we're talking about sex. When they start asking about sex, then little by little, answering the questions, help them explore it in a healthy way.
Yeah. And not to, I think, give them false ideals about it, right? I think that's a big problem maybe in this society, that I would like to not happen potentially next one, to be like, oh, well, you're young, let's not really tell you about sex, right? Let's make it this weird taboo thing that, storks deliver babies. We don't actually, it's not two people, inserting a penis into a vagina. It's just be scientific and honest with them.
Right.
And then they get a healthy development of what sex is, right?
Yeah. I mean, I actually have a unique situation in my life where I live in a small utopia within our world that we already have. And so the children that are raised in my group of friends, it is that way. It's just honest and open about what sexuality is, when they want to know. And also letting them know, hey, we live in a world where not everybody thinks the same way or believes the same way or has the same kind of families. So, to help them be appropriate in school and stuff like that.
Right.
So that they're not like talking about stuff and the teacher goes, hey,
You're not supposed to talk about that because in here we don't talk about that thing.
Exactly.
It's like, okay. But
these kids are the most well-adjusted and going in there, making friends, confident in the world, because they don't have all the shit around what's going on with my body. Why do I, what's going on with attractions to certain people and not others? Like all these questions, like they don't have the questions. They already feel like, they have a different understanding of what's actually going on.
Yeah, totally. As opposed to like most other kids, especially from religious backgrounds, that get this like, oh, that's a no-no thing. That's very scary. It's shameful.
Right.
But shame and guilt are just such bad emotions that really screw us up. And if you can have that like confidence around it, that's going to carry out throughout life and just going to bring on more good and better partnerships and better relationships and so much more openness, right?
Yeah, that fear definitely shuts down. Like you just are afraid of, and it leads into the rest of your life. You're afraid of adventuring out in business. You're afraid of, making choices in the world because, our sexuality is at our core. It's basically a really big part of who we are.
Right.
So to have shame around that, it reflects in every part of us. So yeah, absolutely, like not shaming these children is like a given when we're creating a new city. But how to do that and how to find, adults or teachers or people to be able to model that and to be able to like create a safe place for children to grow up in a healthy way. That's the question. That
is the question, right? Which we'll find an answer to.
Yes.
But I do want to talk about that, the way you put that. Tell me more about the little community that you live in. So you called it like a little utopia here in America that you're a part of, which is a cool word to say.
I have friends that literally call it, we're doing experiments, right? We're doing relationship experiments. I, for example, lived in a house. It was fairly large. We had 5 bedrooms. It was, a big yard, a garden, pool. It was a big enough space. And I had a primary partner, and he and I had other lovers that would live with us. For 10 years, we had that situation.
Wow.
And it was great. I mean, learning a lot of things. Like, obviously, everyone that came in, including ourselves, they didn't really know how to do this yet.
Right.
So it's an experiment.
Yeah.
But really learning so much about how to see people's strengths and how to encourage people to work together and, how to not sabotage and destroy, but instead...
Yeah, that's bound to happen. There's a bunch of people that are dealing with a lot of their own issues and things.
Yeah.
And being like, all right, how do we work through these? Because we all got them.
Right.
How do we do that? How did you kind of work through
Well,
those?
and one of the key things for me is that my primary partner and I actually did not experience jealousy with each other.
Right.
We had...
Amazing.
A connection that we just knew it's there. It didn't matter if one person was having sex with someone else. Like, I knew that didn't take away from the connection I had with them. So, and vice versa. Like, so therefore, not only were we supported and had like a foundation, but also had freedom to connect with other people, which, like I said at the beginning, is a huge growth experience. And so that wasn't an ideal community. It was a work in progress and learning some foundational stuff that's pretty powerful. So a bigger example then, because that was just one household, but I have other friends in my circle of friends that also are doing similar kinds of things.
Okay.
And some of them have children, which is an added piece that is, beautiful and is bound to happen to people.
Yeah, they come out sometimes when people are having sex.
For them, to really learn how to communicate with their children and how to, like, not hide, like, be appropriate, but not hide that hey, we have another friend, and maybe this friend, is living with us for a few months, or, that kind of thing. It's all, they're part of the family. It's about inclusion.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even when we don't live in the same households, it's like, I feel like I have like all these nieces and nephews running around. Like I'm their aunt in a way, It's like all of us are just people that these kids can ask questions to, that can just feel like there's a support system, that if they need something, we're there. So
That's amazing. Honestly, like that's one of the things I've been thinking a lot about for like this society and community, honestly, is that what you're doing is kind of what humans used to do. We didn't used to have this idea of just two people raise kids and it's their kid and they have to handle all the responsibility. It used to be there was a community of 50 to 100 people and kind of everyone raised everyone's kids together as a community. And then it wasn't like, oh, it's all on you to figure this out, when like doing that thing is challenging, right? So that's kind of what I'd like to get into with this type of society, is bringing that idea maybe back to, we're all bringing these people up together. It's not just your kids, and it's not just my kids, because we do like, especially in our society, we like possession. We like the idea of possession a lot, right? We like, that's my wife.
Right.
I own her in a sense. She owns me, and we're connected in that sense. But it's like, hey, you're just people that have made a commitment to each other that could potentially change, and maybe you won't be husband and wife in 5 years. Because you're just people. No one owns anyone, right? We're all just people doing people things. But that is really cool that you guys are doing that, and that that's how you're raising kids. So I guess another question I'd like to ask, and feel free to not necessarily answer this because it's kind of on the spot, but how would you rate your happiness level?
My happiness level?
Yeah.
Right now?
Oh, yeah, it's right.
Like,
so that was a tough one.
Scale from 1 to 10, because like I would say that I typically rest around an 8.5.
That's solid.
Because to me a 10 is like,
like you're just constantly in euphoria, you're always on ecstasy, you're like, I don't think anyone should be that. I think anyone who's always there is kind of like, whoa, hold on, I'm kind of put off by this. Who's just like, I want a little sadness and like,
I tell you, I've had more people like actually think that my happiness is fake, because they just can't understand how someone can be in a good space so much of the time. And it's like, well, it's taken me a few years to like get it. But I remember, I think it was 6th grade, like really getting that, oh, people like me more when I've got my shit worked out and I'm actually in a good space.
Well, you figured that out in 6th grade, you said?
It was around 6th grade, 5th or 6th grade, right now.
That's amazing.
Like I just was like, I saw the guys being attracted to this girl, and it's like, oh, she's got a smile on her face, and she's actually a sweet person, and I just like noticed things, and then after a while, I was just like, oh, it's not just when I hit a home run, or, but it's also like when I'm having fun, like they want to have fun with me,
of course, right?
So it just kind of was something that I was like, oh, I get that piece, and trying to get myself. Like, you have to be authentic because people feel your energy. It's not like, oh, you're faking a smile. It's like, no, that's a fake smile.
People know. People tell the difference.
Exactly.
Especially if you're being like studying facial expressions and micro expressions. I'm like, that wasn't on your eyes didn't wrinkle. Your eyes wrinkle, that's a real smile.
So, I got a wrinkle lines here to prove that.
Yeah.
Smiles are not.
That's what you want wrinkles, everybody, right around your eyes.
Exactly. Right. But so just, really, that it takes going inside and going, what is actually going on with me right now? Like figuring it out. And getting to the bottom of it and going, okay, what choices do I want to make? And then making those choices. Because it's when we don't know what's going on, and then when we start, and the emotion gets carried away and we actually identify with that emotion and feel attached to being that, and you get caught up in, you know, some mood or something, it's like, that's no fun for anyone, especially the person that's having the mood.
Right? Yeah. Like that person doesn't like it either.
They're not enjoying that. So it's a matter of just getting back to that place of where you actually feel happy in your skin and living life from there.
Yeah. So how do you teach that? How do you help people get to that point? Like, how do you help people become aware of?
So for me, like, I think the biggest thing is like, you have to start right where you are, and each person is going to be in a different place. Right. So, I guess teaching group things, I would have to think on that for a minute. But sure. If teaching individual things, it's like if someone's in a relationship and that relationship is having a hard time, well, part of it is your attachment to what that relationship should look like. And, you know, that's like, if you can let go of that attachment and focus on what is it I want to create? Like, how do I want to feel? How do I, even leaving the other person out of it for a little bit and just figuring out, like, who am I? And what do I want to do in this world? And how do I want to be perceived? And how do I want to live? And, you know, how deep do I want to breathe when I sit down? Like, you know, do I want to feel like all tight and constricted, or do I want to feel relaxed as I move about my day? And that has nothing to do with the other person. That's like, can you just slow down a minute and be with yourself for a minute and refocus and reground and, you know, learn a few tools for grounding. I used to actually have a granite stone that I would set right by my desk, and I'd put my feet on it once in a while just to remind myself, oh yeah, I got to stay in my body. I've got to stay on this earth, as well as, you know, connected with whatever I was doing, whether it was, you know, like connected with spirit is what I wanted to say, but that's like so airy-fairy for a lot of people. But like, even in my head, connecting with thoughts or connecting with an idea that I'm focusing on writing about or whatever. It's like, I need to be connected with both at the same time. And that way you're literally using your body as like this channel for like, and keeping it moving and flowing and alive and healthy. You know, so that's the way to do it. I think too, a lot of people, they have this story that they keep telling themselves, right? Those thoughts are like, oh, this person did that and they should be like this and they need to do da. And it's like, well, that's just a story you're saying, right? And I've been doing this work do you know who Byron Katie is? I knew you were going to say that.
Oh yeah, I just said the word, but you know. I've been doing a lot of her stuff.
She's great. I have not read her book, but
I haven't either. I just
I'm like, yeah, like, of course.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean about, like, there's so much to learn from each person.
Yeah.
It's because, like, deep down inside, like, we all, like, we're part of everything, really. And the more we can learn about ourselves, the wiser we become. And this is the goal of that society we're talking about, right? Totally. So we want to become that wise person, which that wise person, like, does learn a lot about those, like, little narrow, detailed, focused ideas, but it's also, there's millions of those ideas, and there's millions of those, you know, like, emotions and all of those things that we want to understand, but not get caught up in one of them. Realize that, oh, we are that, but we're also
all these other possibilities. I mean, there is just so much you can learn from so many different areas, and it's sometimes hard, it's sometimes overwhelming, especially with where we're at now, right? With the age of information where everything's accessible at the click of a button. And so sometimes, like, that narrowing, you know, like you're talking about, like, what do you focus on? Focus on this thing right now.
So this is my first biggest advice in all of that is to slow down.
Right, totally.
Because you're getting bombarded with so much information. And our thoughts are constantly, you know, going, buzzing, spinning. And those thoughts actually trigger chemistry in our bodies, which then create emotion.
Yeah, like, thoughts create things which end up, you know, which creates your reality.
Yeah.
And altering how you adjust your thoughts completely changes your reality. And which comes from words, which is a crazy thing to think about. I mean, you're just kind of talking to yourself like, da, 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 da.
Yeah.
And like, but if you can change that and find a way to manipulate it, like for me, every day, I go through a list of beliefs and trying to reprogram. Like, oh, I was thinking this, like this was an ingrained belief maybe I've had since I was like whatever 6, like maybe I used to just like think I was pathetic. I'm like, you're pathetic. You're kind of a piece of shit. And I tell myself that. It's like, that's not a healthy thought. That's not benefiting me in any way. Although it was like, those thoughts are protecting me, right? And I'm saying them for some reason, but it takes a conscious, sitting down and being like, do I really want to think that anymore? And is that really helping me the way I want it to help me? And if it's a no, which it usually is, especially with thoughts like that, then it's like, all right, what can I put in there? And then I add it to my list. I say that to myself every morning. I try to reprogram these beliefs so I can know better who I am, what I believe, so then I can come and be better with people that I'm around and help them hopefully alter their beliefs a little bit. However, it can help do that.
Yeah. Well, we all have that in us, whether it's conscious or maybe when we were in 7th grade or, there's like, we all have those negative self-talk that's there. And the key is to be able to catch it. Because when it's running and you're not aware that it's running in the background or in the foreground, but, like if you're not aware of it, then it just keeps running and you're not doing your best in the world. And you're not like as relaxed as you could be, as happy as you could be, as confident as you could be. You're not helping others. You're worried about yourself. So it's, is there a way to slow down and catch it? So like being able to say, oh, I actually had this very specific thought that isn't very supportive of myself. I always tell my friends when I hear them saying something negative about themselves, like, don't say that about my friend.
That's great.
They're like, oh, why am I saying that about myself?
Right.
And if you can catch it, like, it only takes a few times to be able to catch it and do something different, make a different choice. We're creatures of habit, so we can create a different pattern. We can create a different neural pathway in the brain. We can create a different, habit to do in our lives that is a positive one. And, I have this whole chapter in my book called Fake It Till You Make It. And part of it is this concept of like, okay, like when I was in college, like I didn't know anything yet about what I was supposed to be doing, but I'd be like, okay, I can do this. And next thing I know, like the teacher has me in the front of the room doing a demonstration to the rest of the class on how to do it. I was just freaking faking it that I could do it. But then I did it, So it's I can do that somewhere. And for me, it was always just, my brain was like, I know I can't do it because I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to fake it until I make it. And that pushed me forward. Even if it was just one step forward, then you can take the next step forward and the next step, So anyway.
No, that's great. Honestly, I was just thinking about that today when I was going to get the flax milk for our Thai teas.
Which was delicious, by the way. Thank you.
By the way, to the rest of the guests, my new thing is to get Thai teas for my guests. I think I want to provide a great experience for them. And that's kind of like my little thing to hopefully help them remember me and do something different than what other podcasters do. But anyhow, as I was going and pulling into the Safeway parking lot, I was thinking about how it's kind of crazy that I'm just like, oh, I'm going to start a podcast. And like, for some people, they'd be like, well, I don't know how to start a podcast. I don't know what to do. And I don't know. And that would like hold them back from doing it. And for me, it's just like, oh, I decided I'm going to do this thing. Let's go give it a shot, see what happens. Because if I didn't, I wouldn't do anything. Nothing would get done if I didn't just like try it out, see how I do at it, see if it works. And you can figure out anything along the way. There's plenty of resources to get better at things and improve and get people to help. Like I went to my friend Roz, who's building a podcasting app called Zcast, and like went to him. I was like, hey, how do I do this? And he helped me out and he helped me through it. And gave me some suggestions to improve the quality of the podcast. But I want to bring it kind of back a little bit. And how do you, in an open relationship, how do you help someone, how do you maybe help someone who wouldn't be, who's maybe kind of considering it, but it's like still very taboo for them? How do you help them with their belief system around maybe becoming a little bit more open to it and seeing how it could be a possibility just to try? Maybe not, maybe they just need to try to find out that it's for them or not, but how do you kind of get them more comfortable with it?
Oh, wow. Okay. So relationships are, it's such an individual thing, with how people want to connect with other people. And, creating an ideal utopia place is kind of a different question than we're in this world right now.
Yeah.
People are in the relationships they're in right now, and they know something's not working. I don't have a strong, a belief system that everything's going to work for everybody.
Of course not, right?
And some people, even in a society where it's please mix it up and learn to have relationships with lots of different people and multiple people at the same time if you have the bandwidth for that and those kinds of things. Some people are still going to choose to be monogamous,
Yeah, of course.
But yeah, really untangling the belief systems that we have and the taboos that are there, and really seeing where that came from, and is it something I still want to choose as a belief?
Yeah.
Is something I had to do.
Yeah.
And, I was raised very strict religious, upbringing, and so much shame around things, and, just guilty and all these things. And I had to untangle each piece of it. And as it would come up, go, wow, that's weird. I'm judging this. Is that my judgment, or did that come from someone else?
Yeah.
And really be honest with myself about what I wanted to create in my life. And, really helping people to start right where they are, and in the relationships that they're in right now, and work on communication.
Yeah. Right.
How can you, first of all, be honest and communicate with yourself, but then you've got to be able to communicate and be honest and transparent and with another person. So, can you talk about when you see someone walk by and you actually have an attraction for them? Maybe it's an attraction for what they look like. Can you talk about, you were in a class with somebody and that other person really had this kind of the same ideas as you, and that was really attractive to you, and you were, attracted to that person. Can you talk to your partner about these attractions that you have that are totally natural, that we all have when our hearts are open and when we're just
just because you're with someone else doesn't mean that you don't still have attraction to other people.
Right.
That's still going to be there. It's not one person, this is the only person now that I'm ever going to be attracted to.
Right.
Before that, with that person, you're looking at everyone as a possible option. You can find that person. And then you find them, you're still kind of looking, because that's what our brains are programmed to do.
Yeah. Well, and some people are going to want to, just simply have sex with one person for the rest of their life. And as long as both people actually really want that, that's great.
Yeah.
But, some people like myself, I actually really like connecting with people sexually.
Totally.
And that's a way I learn even more about them faster and really get to know somebody and get to go deep with somebody.
Yeah.
So if I can have sexual attractions with other people and choose to act on that, it's not, it's a matter of me being knowing where I'm coming from with it and not having other weird agendas around it, but just simply wanting to connect with the person, to get to know them and see how that relationship develops and see where it goes from there. And then, other partners that I have, it's communicating with them about it.
Yeah.
So to help people get to a place of being comfortable with their sexuality and not having all the shame and guilt and conditioning that we have around it, it takes time, and it depends on what their beliefs are about it to untangle those.
And there's a part that you said that I just really loved. I can't remember what it was, but I think it was just about connecting with the person through sex. Like, yeah, that's what it was. When you're in the dating world, you want to sometimes just have sex because, you're horny and that's a need that every human has. And sometimes you're not super emotionally connected to a person, but you still have a connection, and maybe it's sexual. And that's the thing about this society is that, and again, I do like talking about this society, right? Because it helps us understand what maybe not to do and what to help avoid. And one of those things too that I've seen is certain people get in the science idea of like, oh, all you want is sex. And it's like, no, not necessarily. I get where you're coming at, because I get it. A lot of guys do come up with that idea that like, oh, you just want sex from me. It's like, sex is a thing I want. That's part of it. But it's hard to like come and be like, okay, yes, I do. That's one of my goals, is to have sex with you. But another goal is also like the connection from the sex that I'm also looking for, which is hard to talk about. And maybe I don't want to have like a long-term, date you for 2 years, but the connection we have now is also, it can be just as valuable, just as fulfilling. You just have to help them be open to it sometimes, which is challenging.
Yes, it is. A couple of things there. I think in an ideal utopic society where sex isn't taboo, there's not going to be so much like neediness around wanting sex.
Or it's like this super secret thing. Right. Because it's like sex.
Yeah, because you don't have like here it's like because you don't actually have a lot of, most people don't have lovers that they could just call and go, man, I just really feel like moving some sexual energy, because that's our life force energy, and it's about celebrating our life, and it's about creating new things, and it's about getting stagnant energy moving, all of those things that we can use that powerful sexual energy for. Not everybody has, sex buddies that they can just call and say, let's have a tantric session, or let's have a, lovemaking session, or let's, have a fuck session, or whatever, So, in a society where maybe that is available, then that piece is taken care of. And you can look at the other pieces of like, what am I learning from this person? What are these attractions about? And, how can we, see how it unfolds? Yeah. Like, that's the natural way that relationships work.
Totally.
And we're so, these thoughts of, oh, we've got to go and find the perfect one. And,
we're just so much pressure. Like that. Yeah, right.
So much pressure.
If they're not that person, then, it's not right. It's
so much pressure for everybody. So, I don't know how anyone actually goes and finds like the ideal person. It's probably just this chemistry thing that happens, and it feels really good for a couple of years while that new relationship energy is going strong.
Right.
And then to actually, if we could find relationships that are beneficial, like both people are benefiting by being together, and it's a good partnership. Great. I think teamwork is more of the way to go. Like building 100%. Teams,
Yeah, yeah.
And in my ideal team, we'd all be having sex together, because why not?
Yeah, make it happen. Totally. Do you watch The School of Life at all? Have you seen that YouTube channel?
I really haven't. I haven't watched a lot of things.
Okay, that's fair. I recommend checking this one out. It's a big fan of mine. He's a philosopher and has a YouTube channel, Elaine de Bouton.
Is this the one that's based on the Kenzie studies?
I don't know. Some of this stuff might be. I don't know. It's just about like kind of how to live a better life. A lot of them about relationships. And one of the things I really liked and learned from that YouTube channel is how what you're talking about is a relationship is really about learning from one another. And a lot of people think a relationship's about being in love. Yeah, getting the love. No, it is. It's about getting love and being loved and like validating me, right? And when you're just trying to get that from someone else, that's not really a good basis for a strong relationship. As opposed to, hey, how can I teach you something? How can I give you growth and knowledge, and how can you do the same for me? And we're both like in that shared giving space, and that's where a really good relationship comes from, right? And that's how I would hope, or this society could be formed, where like relationships aren't about necessarily falling in love; they're about finding a partner to grow and evolve with and learn from. Because that's what I've learned from all my relationships, right? Which I haven't had a lot of like long-term ones, but nonetheless, like every time I get out of a relationship of any kind, whether even if it's like just a month, I like learned a lot from that. And I go, okay, well, even if it's just something about myself, I'm like, oh, look at that piece of me that either, oh, I like that. I liked how I was with her there. I'm going to just keep doing that. Or it's like, oh, I did not like the way I performed in that area of this relationship. Let me examine that, identify it, and try to do it differently in the next go around.
And that love that we're talking about, I believe that is the core of who we are. And, we have everything that we need inside of us, just like happiness we talked about. It's like, well, the happiness is inside of us. It's not something that we can achieve on the outside. It's not the job we do that's going to make us happy. It's not the relationship we're in that's going to make us happy.
Right.
That happiness is inside, and you have to just let it shine.
Right.
And love is who we are. So, can I be myself? And if someone else understands that they are love and they can be themselves, then when the two of us get together, it's just love bumping up against each other, right? It's like a beautiful thing. And, trying to get or give, in relationships is an interesting thing. Like if we can just be, I think other people are just naturally attracted to who we are. And the more that in a society, everyone can get that thing of being who they are and letting that shine, then natural attractions can happen. And it's not about some neediness. And it's not like a neediness to have to teach somebody something or a neediness to have to learn something. Those things happen automatically.
Right.
It's more of like we are really in a place of, seeing how we can give back to the whole, like the community itself. And
that's it right there.
Yeah. How can we be at ease in our own lives, in our own process? Because we're all going to have our own individual processes of untangling stuff and creating what we want to create. And how do we do that with other people? It's, relationships is, it's at the foundation of how do we create an ideal society. It
is. I mean, like I said in the beginning, in the kind of like the intro piece, it's like the point of a society is to have meaningful relationships. The reason we want to make it all better is so we can connect better with people, which we forget. We think it's about advancing technology and finding discoveries, which are cool, which are awesome, and I love all those things. But though none of those things happen without other people and relationships working together to make them happen. And really, that's all we want. We want that we want just the connection.
So when we're talking about wanting to build a society and have relationships, it's not just like where do we resonate with people, but it's also how do we conflict resolve.
Yes,
right?
100%.
So being present, and this can apply to your question about modern day when someone's in a relationship and they want to explore being open, or things like that, polyamory, whatever they're wanting to explore. It's, how can I be present with my partner, not react to them because their stuff is their stuff. My reactions are my responsibility.
Yes.
Like, how can we just take self-responsibility in each step of the process?
Yeah.
And so when someone has a reaction, and if it's yourself having the reaction, it's like, okay, what are the things you're going to do with the other person? You're going to be patient with them. You're going to listen to them. You're going to, allow them to express themselves. And then you're going to give them a reflection if they're open to that. Well, you got to do the same thing with yourself. You can't just stuff down a reaction that you're having, you kind of go, whoa, I'm having a reaction to whatever has happened.
Yes.
I'm having a reaction. What is that? You got to listen to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You got to let that perspective or that part of whatever that emotion is, and the thoughts that are connected to that emotion express themselves. And then if it's willing, you also have the wise part of yourself that is there to actually give some advice. And if not, you have the researcher inside of you that can research someone that can help give advice to that person, that part of yourself that's having the reaction.
Yeah, look at yourself in this way. Look at what you're doing.
You're going to do the same thing with yourself, and that's taking self-responsibility. So that then you actually can be fully present for another person. If both people are in reaction, nothing is going to be resolved in that moment.
No.
That's why you would then need a third person, which in an ideal society, you're going to have lots of third persons around that are taking self-responsibility. That can be like, yes, I will listen to both of you for a moment and help you listen to each other. And resolve the conflicts, one piece at a time. Sort out, what the triggers are, what the reactions are, what the thoughts around them are, what the belief systems are at the base of that, so that you can see it, embrace it, and then move on to different choices.
Yeah. I mean, imagine if like in this maybe education system, like part of what's also taught is how to help someone else in other relationships and help other people be aware of what they're going through in conflict. Because then everyone can kind of counsel people, or no? Are you against that idea?
I'm like, yes, and you have to start with yourself. Period.
Of course.
So if we want to start at the core, it's about teaching people how to do that for themselves.
Yeah. But it's easier, like, if you know yourself, you can also look at someone else and see, like, hey, I've done that. I know what you're doing. It's so much easier because when you're in it, too, you're like, oh, this thing's going on. And it's so frustrating. This person's doing this. And it's hard to see it sometimes and see where you're making a mistake. But when you see someone else doing that thing, you just went through it maybe, you can be like, oh, yeah, you're doing that thing. And they're like, yeah, you're right. Okay, maybe I need to step back. And then someone can do it to you when you're in it. It's just helping people just be aware. Like, hey, look at that. It could be a mirror for you, right?
I love that. Yeah. Yeah. And if we could have, meditation's a weird word because in our culture, in America, in the United States, like we don't necessarily know what that means. But to me, it just means like the ability to be able to slow down and self-reflect a little and see all the thoughts that are going on and just realize they can just keep moving and you can just, watch them like a movie, kind of thing. And it's like, I think those kind of techniques are really helpful to teach children, not necessarily too young, but whatever, just like as they're growing up, like teach them that ability to do that.
Yes.
And, physical activity helps with that. Like I remember having to learn focus, running the 100-yard dash.
Hey, I was a sprinter as well.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know how to focus and you didn't know how to breathe, you weren't going to be able to break that record because your muscles run out of oxygen. Like, it's not going to work. So, I learned things, we all can learn different ways, but I learned things by being an athlete when I was young and by being around very large animals and learning respect and learning, my size and who I am in the world and these things that you learn. But, we all learn it differently. We need to give, kids opportunities to learn these things so that when they get a little bit older and they have, conflict that they need to resolve, they have some of those basic tools of how do I slow down? How do I self-reflect? Yeah. How do I reach the goal, which is to resolve this conflict? Yeah. Like, how can I do that? What are the steps I need to take between there? It's not just running as fast as you can to get to the finish line. Yeah. It's like, no, I need to breathe. I need to make sure I pick my feet up. I need the things you got to do that, to get to the finish line.
Absolutely. I mean, sports too for me taught me so much about life. I mean, I'm getting back into basketball right now. Every Monday I play with a group of friends, and just like playing basketball again, like playing a sport helps you like simplify life to a sense. At least for like business, okay, look at a lot of things. I'm like, all right. For the best example I think that I've been doing is like leadership, right? And I'm playing with leadership, and I found that really no one takes the lead on either team because it's every time the teams are different, right? So there's no like real leader on either team. But I found after just experimenting, being like, okay, I'm going to kind of be a leader. I'm not the best at basketball. I'm not the most experienced. I haven't been playing the longest. But I'm like, what can I do, right? Well, I can just like pump my team up. I can be the guy that like after every shot, I'm like, great shot, guys, let's go. But even more importantly, after like we mess up or like when people get frustrated, just be like, dude, don't worry about it. Move on to the next shot. Let's go. Let's go. Like, we got this. Or when we're losing, being like, we can beat these guys, but we can do this. I know we have it in us. And I found that by doing that, we end up, if we don't win, we like come back a little bit and people start playing better. And sometimes we do end up winning. And like, it's these little things that I learned from sports that I bring into my life. So I don't know how much of a good anecdote that was to the conversation.
No, it's great. But part of it is like finding what your personal strengths are, because then you have something to contribute back to the team or the community or whatever it is you're working on. You have something to contribute back, but you've got to like realize what your strengths are. Yeah. And part of that, you know, in like dealing with, you know, education and stuff is like helping people find their strengths and really pulling those out, you know, because that's something that none of us like are born knowing what we're good at, and maybe we're good at a lot of things, but what are our real gifts that we can, you know, use, and
what do we even like doing too? Sometimes we're really good at something, we're like, I don't really like doing that thing,
of course, and
then but I love doing this, and sometimes maybe it's like I love doing this, but I'm not very good at it. But helping the kids also develop that growth mindset to be like, you might not be good at this, but you can get good at it. And that could even apply to relationships. Like some people are like, I'm not good at relationships. And then they have that belief that we were talking about earlier. And it's just altering that belief and helping people be able to alter that belief and say, change it around. Like, you might not be good now, but if you work at these things, you can get better. And I think it's about enabling people to develop that growth mindset that the schooling system now definitely doesn't implement in people. But if you develop that and put it into a new society, just I think that little piece could have a profound effect on everything.
Yeah. And, you know, and not everyone is going to be able to be good at the same things. Like, not everyone's actually going to be able to be really good at, you know, we all have different IQs. We all have different, you know, although our IQs can develop as we learn more things, right? Yeah. Through age. But, you know, relationship stuff, I always bring it back to the person, you know, taking self-responsibility. Mm-hmm. So if you think you're not good in relationship, are you good in relationship with yourself?
Yeah, right.
You know, like, let's start there and really be patient with yourself, because you're going to need to, you know, so maybe it's easier for that person to start and be patient with someone else, and then they can see, oh yeah, and I need to be patient with myself. Yeah. But you got to start, you know, start at one of those things, either the person right in front of you or yourself, and work on those basic steps.
Totally. I mean, one of the points I really want to make, that I'll probably make a bunch more, or a bunch more often, is the idea that, well, there's a common meme currently that people are looking for their other half, right? And it's like, I need to find my other half. But it's like, what you're getting at is like, no, find yourself and be complete. And then find another complete person. And then you have, instead of just one whole, you have two. And two is often better than one, right?
Yeah, or maybe you have 3 or 4.
Oh yeah, you know, 3 or 4. I forgot about that. And then you have a team, and then you can do a lot of things.
And you have a team, and you do just a lot of things. It's way more fun.
Totally.
Yeah, I mean, you have a variety of personalities. You know, and with any group, obviously comes with, you know, the good and the bad of that.
Absolutely.
But that's the whole thing, is learning how to, you know, really embrace and encourage the strengths, and how to help each person like see the areas that they're not seeing too, because we all, if we can be as transparent as possible, then part of that is like, oh, we have a shadow or something that we're not quite seeing about our own personality or about our own selves, about how we developed, how we, can't necessarily see everything all the time.
Right.
So it's like when we really trust and love our group of friends or our partners or our lovers, those are people that we feel safe enough to open up and be transparent with.
Yeah.
And can see some of those areas that are like, a shadow side. Maybe you're sabotaging something.
Right. So what are some of the resources that people can go and look up? Maybe some books that people can read around this topic if they want to dive more into like open relationships and other ways of finding themselves and working on themselves. What would you recommend?
I know there's stuff out there. I haven't actually read a lot. I mean, I know there's books on polyamory. There's people that are doing podcasts. I have friends that are doing more things out. Let's see.
You don't necessarily have to, if you don't know like really good resources. I mean, that's cool. So you really did like kind of just did this by kind of working on it yourself. Well,
I mean, there's a whole, I would say yes, because I've been working on this for a very long time.
Yeah.
But also the last maybe 15 years, like I've lived in a larger community of people that are also working on getting along in bigger groups and having more open relationships and that kind of thing.
So that's probably the best resource then, right? Is finding a community like that, if you can. I'm sure that's very difficult to find, but if you can, like finding a way to maybe join a community.
So one thing that a lot of people do is want to move somewhere where there's a community.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so create your own community. You would be surprised how many people in your own neighborhood, in your own, city that you live in has, so many people have these questions and really want to explore the same kind of thing. And then do what we do and have guest speakers come to your city and give some classes. Those kinds of things, maybe go learn how to create community. Like maybe start there, where there's resources for that.
That's interesting. Huh.
So,
who are some of the people that you've invited to come talk? If you want.
Okay, yeah. So, one of most of these are good friends of mine. So okay. So, one of them I would say that gets invited a lot to different areas is Kamala Devi. Okay. She's got her website and things, Kamala Devi. Another one would be Reed Mahalko. I know, Dossie Easton has, I think she has a book out there. I don't know that she gives talks, but she has written books. So there's different communities,
That's good. Is there anything else you'd like to go into real quick before we kind of wrap it up? Any other thoughts, closing thoughts?
Oh gosh. So many thoughts. I think just that we all encourage each other. Sometimes it can get discouraging and you think you're the only one that's going through a particular situation or issue. And just know that as humans, we all go through very similar stuff.
Totally.
And so to be able to be vulnerable enough to like say, hey, I'm going through something right now and I don't have the tools to figure it out on my own, then, you know, there's people probably sitting right in the room with you that can help you a little bit, or at least be supportive and go, hey, I understand how you're feeling, and let's just feel this together for a minute.
Yeah, totally. So important, especially with the vulnerability. Like, find some people to be vulnerable with and just open up to. Mm-hmm. That can go really far for you. That's great. I love this conversation. It's been really fun. What are some ways people can help you out, and where can they find you on the internet, or I don't know, for mail? I don't know.
So I do have a website for my book. It's thesmileonmyface.com.
Love it.
So that would be one way.
Okay.
And there's an email. You can sign up for email.
Sign up for the email to get subscribe. Yeah. So go subscribe, everyone, to hear about when the book launches, right? That's what subscription's for. I know I want to buy the book, so let me know when it's out. And
aiming for the first of 2019.
First of 2019. Fantastic. So I'll keep an eye out, and I appreciate you coming and talking with me.